There is a particular kind of desire that does not rush forward, that does not announce itself loudly, that does not try to conquer or impress. It moves inward before it moves outward. It hides behind discipline, restraint, and silence. When a man desires you deeply but is trying to resist you, his behavior does not become reckless, it becomes controlled, sometimes painfully so. The first sign is contradiction. He draws close, then pulls away. Not because he is confused, but because he is aware. He senses that being near you awakens something powerful inside him, something that threatens the order of his inner world. So he limits contact, shortens conversations, delays responses, not out of indifference, but out of self-preservation. His restraint is not coldness, it is containment. You will notice it in his eyes before you hear it in his words. His gaze lingers a moment too long, then breaks suddenly, as if he has crossed an invisible line. He studies you when he believes he is unseen, then becomes distant when you notice. This is not shyness. This is a man who feels the pull of desire and refuses to surrender to it easily. He is trying to remain sovereign over himself. He may become unusually formal or controlled around you. His tone steadies. His posture stiffens. Humor becomes measured. Compliments become rare but precise. This happens because desire, when suppressed, seeks structure. He does not want to reveal how deeply you affect him, because to reveal it would mean admitting that you have power over him. Another sign is restraint in action. A man who desires you deeply but resists will not take obvious steps forward. He will not flirt openly. He will not chase. Instead, he creates distance while remaining emotionally alert. He remembers small details about you yet pretends neutrality. He listens carefully but speaks cautiously. His attention never disappears, it simply hides behind composure. You may feel his presence even in his absence. Silence becomes charged. Pauses feel intentional. When he withdraws, it is not empty, it is full of tension. This tension is the struggle between instinct and identity. He senses that giving in to desire would change him, would reorder his priorities, would expose parts of himself he keeps guarded. Sometimes he challenges you intellectually rather than emotionally. This is another form of resistance. When desire threatens to overwhelm, the mind steps in to regain control. He debates, analyzes, questions not to dominate you, but to stay anchored to reason. It is safer to engage the mind than to surrender to feeling. You may also notice that he respects your boundaries with almost exaggerated care. He does not test them. He does not cross them accidentally. This respect is not lack of desire, it is the proof of it. He knows that one step closer could unravel his discipline, so he stands still. What makes this form of desire so intense is that it is not expressed through possession, but through struggle. He is not fighting you, he is fighting himself. The attraction has reached deep layers of his psyche, touching instincts he does not easily trust. And so he resists, not because he feels nothing, but because he feels too much. When a man does this, understand that his silence is not absence, his distance is not rejection, and his restraint is not weakness. It is the sign of a desire strong enough to frighten him, strong enough to demand control, strong enough that he believes yielding to it would change the course of his inner life forever. When a man draws close to you and then pulls away, it is rarely a sign of confusion or lack of interest. Rather, it is an intricate dance between the inner world of desire and the conscious will to resist. This contradiction in behavior is one of the most profound indicators of a desire so deep that it threatens to overwhelm him if fully expressed. On the surface, such behavior may seem inconsistent or even frustrating, but beneath it lies a psychological struggle that is both revealing and illuminating. When a man experiences a strong attraction, it often awakens in him instincts, emotions, and longings that he may not fully understand or trust. These feelings stir a kind of inner turbulence, a storm of impulses that call him toward you, while simultaneously warning him of the potential consequences of surrendering to them. The drawing near is instinctive response, an unconscious acknowledgement of the magnetic force he feels, while the pulling away is the conscious effort to maintain control over his life, his choices, and his self-image. The tension between these two forces, the instinctive and the rational, the unconscious pull and the conscious restraint, creates a pattern of behavior that appears contradictory to the outside observer, but is internally coherent within the framework of his psyche. In many ways, this behavior mirrors the dynamics of the human soul when confronted with intense desire. The psyche becomes a battlefield where attraction and caution Longing and discipline, engagement and withdrawal coexist in constant negotiation. Observing this behavior requires sensitivity and perception, for the signals are subtle and often expressed in fleeting moments, glances, and pauses that can easily be overlooked. When he draws near, it is often with great care, a deliberate position of himself within your space, whether physical or emotional, to sense your presence, to feel the rhythm of your being, to gauge the possibility of connection without allowing it to fully materialize. And yet, just as instinctively, just as urgently, he steps back, sometimes abruptly, sometimes almost imperceptibly, creating a space that is both protective and self-imposed, a buffer that allows him to regain equilibrium and to reassess the intensity of his feelings. This back and forth, this ebb and flow is not random. It is a manifestation of a mind and heart wrestling with desire, attempting to reconcile an inner world that is stirred and animated by your presence with an outer world that demands composure, reason, and self-possession. The contradiction is thus a mirror of his inner conflict, reflecting a tension that is as much about his own self-mastery as it is about his feelings toward you. In drawing near, he reveals the depth of his attention and the seriousness of his attraction. In pulling away, he demonstrates the weight of his restraint and the value he places on maintaining his autonomy. The awareness of this contradiction also suggests a level of introspection, a consciousness that he is being observed not just by others but by himself, that he is accountable to his own standards, and that yielding entirely to desire carries consequences that extend beyond the immediate moment. Every gesture, every hesitation, every pause becomes a form of communication that is rich with meaning yet deliberately controlled. The seeming inconsistency is in fact a highly structured psychological pattern, a rhythm of approach and withdrawal that allows him to experience the force of his feelings without being consumed by them. In this way, the contradiction becomes a language of its own, a silent but eloquent testament to the struggle between instinct and intellect, between the raw pull of desire and the deliberate act of self-restraint. It is in these moments, when he is closest yet most distant, that you can sense the intensity of what is at play, for the energy of desire is palpable even in absence, and the act of pulling away is itself infused with the gravity of what he is attempting to resist. The closer he comes, the more conscious he becomes of the power of attraction, and the more deliberate his withdrawal becomes. Not as a rejection of you, but as a protective measure for himself, as a way to contain the force that he feels within. This dynamic creates a tension that can be felt emotionally and psychologically, a sense that something significant is occurring beneath the surface, a silent acknowledgement of the depth of feeling that is being carefully regulated and contained. The contradiction in behavior is therefore a profound signal, not of uncertainty, but of a desire that is both intense and disciplined, a desire that manifests through careful calibration of presence and absence, approach and retreat. Understanding this behavior requires a sensitivity to subtle cues, an awareness of the ways in which desire can be expressed without words, through proximity and distance, through attention and measured withdrawal. It is in noticing these patterns, in perceiving the rhythm of drawing near and pulling away, that one can begin to grasp the depth of what is being experienced. The struggle to resist is often as revealing as any explicit declaration of attraction, for it exposes the inner workings of the psyche, the interplay between emotion and reason, the negotiation between longing and the rules one sets for oneself. By observing the contradiction, one can see the contours of desire as it manifests in controlled gestures, fleeting glances, and carefully measured interactions. It becomes clear that the behavior is not arbitrary but intentional, guided by an unconscious yet disciplined sense of how to navigate feelings that are powerful, compelling, and potentially destabilizing. The man who draws near and then pulls away is engaging in a complex psychological exercise, testing the limits of his self-control, exploring the intensity of his feelings, and simultaneously protecting his sense of identity and autonomy. This dynamic, when understood, reveals the profound depth of his attraction, for it shows that desire can be so strong that it must be resisted in order to be endured, that the intensity of feeling requires a counterbalance of restraint, and that the act of withholding oneself becomes a testament to the power of what is being experienced. Each act of approach is a moment of vulnerability, a subtle acknowledgement of longing, while each act of withdrawal is a reclaiming of control, a recalibration of the boundaries that define him. The tension between these movements, the contradiction between drawing near and stepping back, is the expression of a desire that is both consuming and contained, passionate and disciplined, instinctual and reflective. Observing this pattern allows one to perceive not only the presence of desire but also the complexity of the inner life it animates, the intricate interplay of forces that govern behavior, and the profound significance of the struggle to resist what one feels most deeply. It is in this contradiction, in this silent oscillation between closeness and distance, that the depth of feeling becomes visible, that the intensity of attraction reveals itself not through reckless abandon but through careful negotiation of presence and absence, approach and retreat, longing and restraint. Each movement toward you carries with it a weight of anticipation, a tension that is both exhilarating and controlled, while each movement away carries a weight of self-discipline, a conscious effort to manage the force of what is being experienced. The pattern is as much about self-preservation as it is about attraction, as much about understanding the power of feeling as it is about navigating the social and personal consequences of yielding to it. Through this contradiction, one can perceive the architecture of desire, the ways in which it is structured within the psyche, and the remarkable way in which human beings attempt to reconcile the powerful forces that stir within them with the imperatives of reason, morality, and self-mastery. It is in noticing the careful calibration, the ebb and flow, the deliberate oscillation between approach and retreat, that one can understand the intensity of the desire that drives such behavior. When a man's gaze lingers on you, and then suddenly breaks, there is a silent story being told, a narrative of longing tempered by restraint, a reflection of desire that he is consciously trying to control. This controlled presence is not about indifference or detachment. It is about the careful regulation of feelings that are so potent they threaten to overwhelm the boundaries he has constructed around himself. The eyes are windows to the inner world, and when his gaze meets yours, there is a flicker of something unspoken, a recognition of the pull he feels and the struggle it creates within him. He studies you when he believes you are not watching, observing your expressions, your gestures, the subtle movements that reveal your inner state. Yet when you notice, he withdraws, as if the act of being seen would expose too much of what he feels. This measured attention is a reflection of the depth of desire that he harbors, a desire so strong that it requires deliberate control to prevent it from spilling into actions or words that might betray the intensity of his feeling. Every glance, every subtle shift in focus, becomes a form of communication that is carefully calibrated. It conveys interest without surrender, longing without possession, attention without intrusion. The restraint is deliberate, an internal negotiation between the pull of instinct and the demands of conscious thought. His posture becomes deliberate, his movements precise, his gestures minimal yet meaningful. There is a subtle tension in the way he carries himself, a careful modulation of energy that seeks to maintain equilibrium in the presence of something that excites and unsettles him at the same time. The intensity of his desire is mirrored in this controlled presence, for it takes great effort to remain composed when the unconscious is calling for engagement. In his tone of voice, there may be a steadiness that seems almost unnatural, a careful moderation that conceals the turbulence beneath. He chooses his words with precision, speaks when necessary, pauses when it would be easier to speak, all in an effort to maintain a sense of self-possession while navigating the undercurrents of attraction that swirl beneath the surface. Humor, when it appears, is measured, restrained, offering glimpses of warmth and connection without revealing the full extent of the pull he feels. Compliments are rare but precise, selected not for quantity but for impact, carrying with them a weight that is felt more in the heart than in the ear. Each interaction becomes a delicate balance, a negotiation between revealing desire and maintaining control, between allowing the self to be drawn toward you and keeping the self intact. The controlled presence is also reflected in the way he manages physical space. He may position himself near you, sensing your energy, yet remain at a distance that preserves his autonomy. He is attuned to your movements, your expressions, your unspoken signals, yet he does not intrude, does not press, does not rush. This spatial awareness is a manifestation of the internal struggle between longing and restraint, between the impulse to connect and the need to maintain composure. There is a rhythm to his presence, an ebb and flow of attention that is subtle yet perceptible, a pattern that mirrors the tension within him. His eyes may return to yours briefly, then shift away, creating a silent dialogue that speaks volumes without words. His body may lean slightly toward you, then withdraw, as if negotiating the invisible boundary between desire and discipline. This controlled presence is also evident in his listening. He listens not only to your words but to the spaces between them, the pauses, the inflections, the the undercurrents of meaning that reveal more than what is spoken. He engages intellectually, not to dominate, but to anchor himself in reason, to navigate the landscape of emotion without being swept away. The intensity of his observation reflects the depth of his attraction, for it is impossible to notice so carefully without feeling something profound. Even in his silence, there is a presence that is felt, a weight of attention that communicates desire restrained by conscious effort. He may show care in subtle ways, remembering small details about you, noting preferences, observing habits, all without overtly signaling his interest. These acts are quiet, almost invisible, yet they speak of attentiveness that is born of deep internal engagement, a desire that manifests not through dramatic gestures but through careful, considered observation. His controlled presence is also reflected in how he manages emotional proximity. He may share thoughts and insights selectively, revealing just enough to connect, but withholding the full measure of his feelings to preserve the boundaries he has set. The restraint is not avoidance. It is an acknowledgement of the power of his emotions and the need to maintain control over them. Each word, each gesture, each glance is deliberate, a reflection of the inner negotiation between desire and discipline. There is a tension in this controlled presence, a pull toward engagement counterbalanced by the need for self-mastery. It is in this tension that the depth of his desire is revealed, for it is only when feeling is so strong that it must be restrained that one can perceive the true intensity of attraction. His presence may feel both near and distant, warm yet measured, attentive yet contained. This duality is the essence of desire restrained, a powerful emotion that seeks expression but is tempered by reason and self-awareness. It is in the subtle details, the micro-expressions, the careful modulation of tone, deliberate pacing of interactions, that the language of controlled desire is spoken. Understanding this presence requires sensitivity, the ability to perceive not just what is said or done, but what is held back, what is measured, what is consciously restrained. In these moments, you can sense the internal struggle, the oscillation between longing and control, the careful balancing act that allows him to remain near without surrendering, to engage without losing himself, to desire without giving in completely. Each measured movement, each restrained expression, each deliberate pause becomes a testament to the power of his feelings, silent acknowledgement of desire that is profound yet contained, intense yet disciplined, compelling yet carefully moderated. The controlled presence is not merely a social facade, it is the outward manifestation of an inner process, a reflection of the psychological architecture of desire as it is consciously navigated. Every glance, every gesture, every word is an expression of a desire that is conscious of its own force, careful of its consequences, and deliberate in its expression. When a man exercises restraint in his actions toward you, it is often a sign of a desire that runs deeper than simple attraction, a longing so profound he fears the consequences of surrendering to it fully. This restraint is a conscious effort to manage impulses that threaten to overwhelm him, to navigate the intense pull of attraction without losing control over himself or his life. He may avoid overt gestures, refraining from flirtation or direct pursuit, not because he lacks interest, but because the intensity of his feelings demands careful management. Every interaction becomes measured, deliberate, and intentional, a way to experience your presence without crossing the invisible line that his discipline imposes. He respects boundaries not out of formality but out of an understanding that one misstep could unravel the careful control he maintains over his desires. The restraint is expressed in subtle ways, in the careful modulation of speech, in the timing of responses, in the physical space he maintains, in the conscious effort to suppress impulses that might reveal the depth of his longing. Even silence becomes charged with meaning. Pauses are not empty, but full of tension and awareness, reflecting the internal struggle between desire and self-regulation. In observing him, one might notice that he remembers small details about you, recalls preference, notes habits, and yet refrains from using these observations to manipulate or intrude. This careful attentiveness is a hallmark of restrained desire, a quiet manifestation of deep interest expressed not through overt action, but through mindful presence and observation. The act of restraint itself becomes a form of communication, a silent acknowledgement of the intensity of his feeling, signaling that he is deeply affected by you without overtly revealing the extent of his inner world. His restraint is also evident in the ways he manages emotional engagement. He may share thoughts selectively, reveal parts of himself cautiously, and maintain a controlled tone in conversation, all as a means to experience connection without being consumed by the intensity of desire. There is a rhythm to his behavior, an ebb and flow of closeness and distance, of engagement and withdrawal that mirrors the internal negotiation taking place within him. He is drawn toward you by instinct, yet pulled back by reason, create a dynamic that is rich with tension, subtlety, and psychological depth. This restraint can also manifest in intellectual engagement. He may focus on conversation, on ideas, on debates, rather than allowing interactions to become purely emotional or impulsive. This serves both to anchor him in reason and to navigate the powerful currents of desire without losing himself entirely. In this way, the mind becomes a tool of containment, a mechanism to regulate feelings that are otherwise overwhelming. Physical gestures are equally measured. He may position himself close enough to sense your presence, yet not so close as to cross the boundary he has imposed. He observes attentively, leans in slightly, withdraws just enough to maintain autonomy, and modulates energy carefully to avoid giving in fully to impulse. Every movement is a negotiation between instinctive attraction and conscious self-restraint, creating a pattern of behavior that is subtle yet deeply revealing of the intensity of feeling within. Even his attentiveness to your emotions is carefully managed. He may sense your moods, notice your expressions, and respond in ways that show awareness without overstepping the bounds of restraint. This attentiveness is deliberate, reflecting a deep care and interest expressed through controlled, mindful engagement. The restraint also extends to the sharing of time and attention. He may seek proximity, yet never demand it. He may engage fully when present, yet never overstep the delicate balance of closeness and distance. This careful navigation allows him to experience the richness of connection while preserving the self-discipline necessary to maintain control over intense feelings. The intensity of his desire is often mirrored in the depth of his listening. He listens not only to words but to the spaces between them, the inflections, the subtlety, and the undercurrents of meaning that reveal more than what is overtly expressed. His listening is a form of restraint, a way to engage fully with your presence without letting emotion override reason. Even humor and lightness are measured. When he laughs, smiles, or teases, it is with care, a subtle acknowledgement of comfort and attraction without revealing the full extent of inner feeling. Each small gesture, each carefully chosen word, becomes a means of expressing interest while maintaining self-control. There is a profound psychological component to this restraint. It reflects not indifference, but awareness of the power of desire, a consciousness that yielding completely could destabilize his inner equilibrium. The pulling back, the measured speech, the careful attention, all reveal the depth of his engagement precisely because they are not impulsive but deliberate. In this way, restraint becomes a mirror of intensity, showing the presence of desire even when it is not acted upon overtly. This careful self-regulation can create a charged presence, a tension that is palpable even in the absence of dramatic gestures. It is in the subtlety, the controlled attentiveness, and the deliberate oscillation between engagement and withdrawal that the strength of his feelings becomes evident. Even when he does not speak, when he does not act, when he maintains physical and emotional boundaries, the intensity of desire is communicated through the disciplined containment of feeling. The patterns of restraint, repetition, and measured interaction allow one to perceive the struggle between impulse and reason, between longing and the rules he imposes on himself. It is in this struggle that the depth of his desire is revealed, for only that which is intensely felt requires such careful management. The restraint may extend to his social behavior as well. He may be attentive to you in group settings, yet careful not to signal his attraction too openly. He may maintain composure when emotions run high, choosing words and action that reflect awareness of his inner struggle, while honoring social decorum. In private moments, the depth of desire may be more subtly expressed through sustained attention, small gestures, and quiet acknowledgement, always controlled, always measured, always restrained. This dynamic creates a tension that is rich with psychological complexity, a dance between instinctive pull and conscious self-discipline that defines the behavior of a man who desires deeply yet resists. Each act of restraint is a reflection of the intensity of feeling, a deliberate negotiation with the inner current of longing, a conscious effort to maintain integrity while navigating the powerful forces of attraction. It is through this restraint that one can discern not only the presence of desire, but its depth, its seriousness, and the inner strength required to regulate it. The measured actions, the careful observation, the select engagement, The control gestures all are part of a coherent pattern that signals profound interest expressed through discipline rather than impulsivity, through mindfulness rather than abandon, and through self-regulation rather than surrender. When a man challenges you intellectually rather than emotionally, it is often a subtle yet powerful sign that he desires you deeply but is consciously attempting to resist the pull of attraction. This behavior is not rooted in a desire to dominate or assert superiority. Rather, it reflects an inner strategy to anchor himself in reason when emotions threaten to destabilize his sense of self. The mind becomes a tool of containment, a way to navigate the turbulent currents of longing without surrendering to them fully. When he debates, questions, or analyzes situations with you, it is not a reflection of disinterest but of self-regulation, an attempt to engage with you while maintaining control over impulses that are intense and potentially overwhelming. The challenge may appear in the form of differing opinions, pointed questions, or a probing curiosity that tests your reasoning, your perspective, and your emotional boundaries. Yet beneath this intellectual engagement lies a subtle energy, a tension between the conscious desire to remain composed and the unconscious pull toward closeness and intimacy. In challenging you mentally, he's creating a safe arena in which he can interact with you without being consumed by raw emotion. Ideas become a bridge, a channel for connection that allows him to experience the richness of engagement while avoiding the vulnerability that comes with open emotional surrender. This intellectual focus can manifest in numerous ways. He may scrutinize your arguments with intensity, offering counterpoints that are precise and deliberate. He may ask questions that probe deeper than the surface, revealing an interest in understanding not just what you say, but the motivations, principles, and thought processes behind your words. He may engage in playful debates, challenging your assumptions, not to prove you wrong, but to create a rhythm of exchange that channels desire into cognitive engagement rather than physical or emotional impulsivity. The deliberate nature of this behavior demonstrates both the depth of feeling and the degree of self-control being exercised. The challenge serves as a buffer, a mechanism that allows him to experience the tension of attraction safely, to explore the dynamics of desire without surrendering completely to it. In this way, the intellect becomes a protective mechanism, a conscious strategy to manage impulses that are otherwise difficult to contain. His analytical approach is often accompanied by subtle cues that betray the presence of deeper feelings. The intensity of his focus, the attention to detail in your words, the careful listening, and the thoughtful responses all signal that he is highly attuned to you even as he maintains a measured distance. The mind is engaged, but the heart remains guarded, creating a complex interplay between desire and restraint that is both fascinating and revealing. This dynamic is often reinforced by his careful modulation of emotion in conversation. He may smile sparingly, laugh with precision, and regulate tone to avoid expressing too much too soon. Even when teasing or bantering, there is a deliberate control that mirrors the internal struggle to balance attraction with self-discipline. Every word, every gesture, every pause is intentional, reflecting an ongoing negotiation between instinct and reason. The challenge may also manifest in the way he frames interaction. He may bring up topics that encourage critical thinking, prompt reflection, or require nuanced responses. In doing so, he engages with you at a level that satisfies his curiosity and allows him to connect meaningfully, yet keeps the emotional component under careful control. By prioritizing intellectual engagement, he channels the intensity of desire into thought, analysis, and conversation, rather than unrestrained emotional expression. This approach often reflects a high level of self-awareness and introspection. He recognizes the power of his feelings, understands the risks of impulsive behavior, and consciously chooses a pathway that allows him to experience connection while maintaining autonomy. The act of intellectual challenge is a manifestation of the tension between longing and self-restraint, a visible sign of desire that is both deep and disciplined. One may also notice the subtle ways in which he balances engagement with distance. He may challenge your ideas yet defer to your conclusions in matters of personal significance, signaling respect while still maintaining the intellectual rhythm that serves as a containment for desire. He may provoke thought without overstepping boundaries, allowing him to navigate the push and pull of attractions safely. The interplay between challenge and restraint becomes a form of communication, conveying intensity and interest without overt emotional vulnerability. His questioning, probing, and debating are not neutral acts. They are imbued with the energy of attraction that he carefully regulates. Even in disagreement, there is a thread of connection, a recognition that the interaction is a controlled dance between curiosity, intellect, and the deep stirrings of desire. The intellectual engagement also reflects a deeper psychological mechanism. When desire is strong, the mind often steps into structure experience, to analyze, to regulate, and to create a framework within which the emotion can be tolerated. By challenging you mentally, he creates a structured environment in which desire can be present but contained. The intensity of his attraction is mirrored in the rigor of his questions, the precision of his arguments, and the thoughtfulness of his observation. This dynamic requires careful observation to perceive fully. The signs are subtle: the heightened attentiveness, the deliberate pacing of conversation, the oscillation between engagement and thoughtful withdrawal, the measured use of humor and critique, all of which signal a desire that is powerful yet consciously restrained. Even in his silence, in the moments when he pauses to reflect before responding, there is evidence of the inner negotiation taking place. The mind becomes both a shield and a conduit, allowing him to experience connection without yielding entirely to emotion, to explore the depth of feeling without becoming vulnerable beyond his control. This intellectual strategy may also extend to social contexts. In group settings, he may engage you with questions or discussions that draw your attention without exposing personal vulnerabilities. He maintains composure, demonstrates interest, and exercises discipline simultaneously. By structuring his engagement around thought rather than pure emotion, he is able to navigate desire in a way that preserves autonomy while signaling attraction. The challenge is therefore not a form of detachment but a deliberate tool, a conscious method for managing intense feeling. The deeper the desire, the more careful the regulation, the more powerful the attraction, the greater the need for a structured outlet. Intellectual engagement becomes a means of expressing interest and desire without compromising self-control. Through this dynamic, one can perceive the intensity of feeling that lies beneath the surface. Every question, every counterpoint, every reflective pause is a thread in a tapestry of controlled desire, woven with care and consciousness. The man who challenges you mentally is revealing in subtle ways that he is drawn to you deeply. The depth of attraction is reflected in the effort to contain it, in the discipline applied to engagement, and in the use of intellect as a buffer against the potentially overwhelming force of emotion. In this way, challenge becomes both a signal and a shield, an intricate mechanism through which desire is acknowledged, experienced, and carefully regulated, a sign that the pull toward you is strong enough to require conscious containment, and that the mind is enlisted as a partner in the ongoing negotiation between longing and restraint.